today we are going to talk about
loving your spouse the way they desire to be loved.
Exactly. So, it's funny because I think a lot of women and men fall into this trap. I've been in the marriage game for 10 years, and I think we sometimes forget to really think about each other's needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get into a routine, you know what you want to have done, and sometimes I think we lose sight of kind of really prioritizing what our spouses need from us.
Exactly. I think it's easy to give someone sometimes what you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I like when someone, goes to get gas in my car and, takes care of things around the house for me, that doesn't always mean that that's what my spouse desires. And so I think a lot of times, like you said,
Right.
we fall in that trap of, loving our spouse sometimes the same way through the duration of the marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes loving them the way we desire to be loved instead of learning how they want to be loved.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we've read that has been really, really helpful is the 5 love languages. So if you haven't heard of it, you definitely need to check it out. It's a really good book. You want to talk a little bit about it?
I will. So 5 love languages is really good, and we've been onto this book for a while. And I'll read through the 5 love languages. And if you guys have not purchased the book, I think it'd be really good for you to have. Again, it talks about understanding what your significant other's love languages are. And a love language is really how you respond to love.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how is it that you can show me that you love me? There's 5 things here that Gary Chapman came up with and talks about. These are usually the places that people fall from a love language. Mm-hmm. So the first one is words of affirmation. Mm. And Tamara, words of affirmation, I would say, is kind of really like affirming someone. So like, you look really nice, mm-hmm. or, you did a really good job at that. Really proud of you. But really just being able to verbally say to a person how you feel about their accomplishments, things that they're doing. Anything else you would add to that?
Yeah, no, I think you kind of summed it up. It's really about verbally affirming, good deeds, good acts, making sure that they understand and they verbally hear words of affirmation.
Yep. Yeah. The second one is acts of service.
Oh,
and
yes.
I'll tell you, I've been acts of service before, and then there's times when I wasn't it. So that's another thing that we want to talk about after we go through it. The list is that your love languages change often. So you may need words of affirmation at some point. You may need acts of service at some point. So acts of service is
totally
really
acts of service.
Yeah, totally acts of service.
Yeah.
So acts of service is like when your spouse or significant other can value you helping them out with specific needs or things around the house.
Right.
Or, like I said, going to get gas in my car or doing things like that for me. That shows me your actions show me that you care and that you love me.
Absolutely. Love it.
Yep. The third one is love language is receiving gifts. So receiving gifts is a really big one. At some point I was this one too, right?
Yes. Lord.
After been married for a little while, receiving gifts means about this much to me.
Right.
But at one point it was really important to me. And so receiving gifts is just that simple. It's, someone shows their love for you by buying gifts or purchasing things for you or just nice gestures with gifts.
That's right.
The fourth one is quality time. So quality time is just simply said. Tira's like, that's me.
What I like to do.
But quality time is simply put, uninterrupted time with your spouse or your significant other shows that they value you and that they love you.
Yeah.
And then the last one is physical touch. So physical touch, we all know that some people are a little bit more hands-on, and when they talk, it's, you
guys have had one of those.
Yes.
Rubbing on your shoulder.
Sometimes like, get off me. But
don't touch
but that's how some people feel like that you love me because you've touched me or you've caressed me or things like that. So just really quick again. So words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. And so one of the things that Tamara and I talk a lot about with this subject is it's important that you get to know what your spouse's love language is so that you can respond in ways that they can receive.
And not just even spouses, but just any relationship, understanding how people receive and that, receive love, or how they demonstrate love is super important. I will say
so important.
It's probably the root to some of the biggest issues around communication in relationships is not understanding how people give and receive love to each other.
That is it.
I'm telling you.
I mean, I've only been married for 4 years. Timber's been married for a decade. Okay, so she's got 10 years in the game. But I will tell you, anytime that my spouse and I have had any major issues, if we were to go back to this list and say, okay, what is he not getting that he needs? What am I not getting that I need?
Right.
It usually is one of those things.
It usually is. And if I can think about like my husband, one of the things that is super important to him is words of affirmation. And just making sure that I'm just mindful when we go through our day to day that I usually keep that at the top of mind, especially in times where he's stressed out, he needs help. The way that I can show him the best love and that I'm there to support him is really through words of affirmation.
And Tamara brings up a good point, because I remember having a conversation with a lady about words of affirmation one time, and she was like, well, but I feel like I'm faking it if I'm saying things to my spouse all the time. And I tried to explain to her, you think great things about your spouse all the time.
Yeah.
It's just you learning to put those into words more often because they need that. So it's not that you're faking it. It's just that you're learning to take, instead of going to buy a gift to say that you did a really good job, you're learning that you're putting those actions into words.
Exactly. And you can be authentic with it.
Oh, yeah.
We're not advocating that you go out and just be like, honey, you're doing a great job. Yes.
So proud of you.
Like, you don't have to do all that. But I mean, at the moments where you are thinking about those things, it's just important to verbalize it if that's your husband's or spouse's love language.
I agree with that. And, I'll tell you too, for me, acts of service is really big for me. So until recently, I had a position at work where I traveled a ton and was always away, but there always felt like there were little things along the way in the house or wherever that I wasn't able to do the way I wanted to. Or just the sheer amount of times that I had to stop at a gas station to get gas because I traveled so much. It really meant a lot to me at that time. The times when my husband did show, like, I'll take care of that. I'll handle that because I know you're not here to do that right now.
Yes.
So those things can be really important. But the big thing that we talked about earlier is understanding that your love languages change.
Yeah.
So we talk about this notion of kind of going back to the 5 love language book often and revisiting it. So how often are we doing that maintenance on our marriage or any relationship? So to Timra's point, with us being best friends for over 20 years, there's been times when I know that Timra just needed an ear. She just needed somebody to listen to. And then there's also been times where maybe Timra may have needed me to affirm her more. Yeah. So it's not just with marriage.
It's not just with marriage. It definitely works with a lot of different relationships. And to your point, revisiting it often is the key. Yeah. Figuring out and just having open communications with your spouse too about what it is that you need is going to be just truly key. And really taking the time to listen and keeping that top of mind. One of the things I think I've learned after 10 years of marriage is really understanding to listen to what my husband needs. And sometimes I have to know what he needs, even though he don't know what he needs.
That's right.
But really figuring out what is it that he needs at the time. It is one of the most selfless things that you have to be able to teach yourself to do. A lot of times we get caught up in our own emotions and our own feelings and our own thinking around what's going on. But a lot of times if we can just think about putting our spouse and what they need first, and I've actually tried this over a week. I dedicated it was a stressful time, and I said, you know what? I'm going to give him the things he needs this week. Yeah. Just this week. Wow. And just focused on what did he need versus how I felt. And the results were like just night and day.
It's insane.
It really was.
Because you almost feel them, like it almost feels like something's lifted off of them. And that they feel like, wow, she understands me. Yeah. And the times when my love language is reached, I feel the same way. So it's, oh, okay, like you're doing more of what I like. Yeah. And, I always had this funny joke about my husband specifically. I remember throwing him a surprise birthday party. Oh, I was so excited. I'm telling you, I went and got fat heads made. I mean, I had the works, right? And not that didn't mean a lot to my husband, but truthfully, that was something that I desired. Like, I liked being surprised. Yeah. And where he appreciated it, and it was like, oh, that was really nice of you to do that. It almost felt like, oh, that was a nice gesture. But really what my husband probably was thinking is, if you just tell me how much I mean to you, if you just kind of reaffirm how great of a husband I am, how much I do around the house, how much I do to support you, you know, how great of a father I am, those things meant a lot to him. Where for me, at the time, I was thinking, like, man, if somebody threw me a surprise birthday party, I'd have a ball. Like, I'd come in there partying, you know. But, like, it's just so interesting how often, as we said before, we tend to love our spouses the way we want to be loved. And that deficit that sometimes one or the other feels, you create that, and you're almost like, well, let me give this to this person versus we attend a Bible study with our church, and they talk about study your spouse. You've got to study your spouse and get to know your spouse. And you know, if you have a spouse that loves the physical touch and you're just not a touchy type person, then they're constantly feeling a void. Like, well, gosh, like, you know, she hasn't touched me today, or she hasn't, you know, interacted with me physically in a while. And if you're not careful, they're going to be suffering in silence with that.
Exactly. And I think to your point, just really being able to, that and just being selfless when you do it.
Oh, yeah.
Because, again, my love language is totally different than my husband's. And some days I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to, like, say it anymore.
Yeah. You get it, right? I told you last week. Okay.
Like, okay, right. I said it a lot. But just, again, being selfless, being thoughtful about what your spouse needs, making sure that you are filling those voids is super important. So, you know, guys, we'd love to hear about, you know, your love language, what your thoughts are, any tips or tricks you have. Love for you to share.
Yeah, so make sure that you share, make sure you comment, folks. We love the interaction that you guys are sharing with us. Some of it's behind the scenes, some of it's in our comment section, but continue to share. We're having a really good time with this.
Absolutely.
And, you know, one of the things that we're both passionate about is really just conversation and healing. So a lot of times we don't get better because we don't stop to talk about things.
Exactly.
And so we're excited to have the conversations with you guys. We're not going anywhere. This is going to be fun. We've got a year planned out of some really cool stuff, fun stuff, some panels, some really good conversations. So continue to join us every week, and we look forward to talking with you.